I never thought my marriage would end at a restaurant table, but that's exactly what happened. My wife Jessica insisted I come along to dinner with her friends, which was pretty standard. I'd learned my role over the years. Sit there, smile when appropriate, let them talk, and basically exist as background furniture in her social life. I was the plus one who didn't plus anything. What I didn't see coming was the red wine hitting my face before I could even process what was happening. The warmth spread across my cheek, dripping down onto my shirt collar. Everything around me seemed to stop for a second, except for Jessica's laugh. It wasn't embarrassed or apologetic, it was genuinely amused, sharp, and full of satisfaction. "Why do you always have to be such an idiot?" she said loudly, still holding the half-empty glass like she might finish the job. Her friends started laughing too. Some looked uncomfortable, but nobody was going to call her out on it. I just sat there, feeling the wine soak into my skin while everyone watched to see what I'd do. Would I yell? Would I storm off? Would I laugh it off like always? I grabbed a napkin and slowly wiped my face. The embarrassment burned worse than the booze. This wasn't even the first time she'd humiliated me in public, but something felt different tonight. The way she looked at me, she wasn't even pretending anymore. She genuinely enjoyed putting me down. I took a deep breath and straightened up, put the napkin on the table, and stood up without saying a word. I walked out while their whispers followed me to the door. I could still hear Jessica laughing, probably making some joke about how dramatic I was being, how I couldn't take a joke, how sensitive I was. By the time I reached my car, my hands were completely steady. I got in, let the silence settle around me, and pulled out of the parking lot on autopilot. My mind kept replaying not just that night, but the last few years. The constant cutting remarks disguised as jokes. The way she dismissed everything I said. How she treated me like furniture instead of her husband. It had been happening slowly, eating away at our marriage, and I'd let it happen because I kept telling myself it would get better. That maybe if I was more patient, more understanding, more accommodating, she'd eventually see me as an equal. But tonight was different. I wasn't going to wake up tomorrow and pretend this didn't happen. I wasn't going to let her smooth it over with some fake apology or meaningless gift. When I got home, I walked past our wedding photos, where we both looked so young and hopeful, past all the expensive stuff Jessica had insisted on buying to impress people who didn't care. I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and started writing. Not a letter or a complaint, just a list. Every insult, every humiliation, every time I'd swallowed my pride to keep the peace. I wrote down dates, exact words, specific incidents. The time she told her mother I was useless around the house while I stood right there. The time she laughed when her friend asked if I'd gotten a promotion, saying I was lucky to have my current job. The countless times she'd interrupted me mid-sentence to talk over me, like my words didn't matter. The way she'd roll her eyes when I shared my opinions. How she'd make decisions about our life without consulting me, then act like I was being controlling when I objected. Everything I'd tried to forget, but never really had. The words came easily, maybe too easily. This wasn't about revenge or making her suffer. It was about remembering. For too long, I'd convinced myself I was overreacting, that maybe she didn't mean it, that this was just how Jessica was. But staring at those pages, I knew the truth. It had never been my fault. It had always been her. And now it was over. Jessica didn't come home right away. She loved attention too much to leave early, especially after her little show. She'd be replaying the moment, basking in the laughter, maybe even telling the story again with added flourishes about how ridiculous I'd looked. I sat alone in the quiet house that used to feel warm, but now felt suffocating. There was a time when this place felt like home, filled with actual conversation and shared laughter. That was years ago, though. Now the silence pressed down on me like a weight, heavy and oppressive. I looked at the list growing in front of me. Every line felt like reopening a wound I'd ignored for too long. Her insults had started subtle, harmless teasing that gradually became sharper and crueler. "Don't bother helping, you'd just mess it up." "You? Fix something? That's funny." "God, you're embarrassing. Can you not talk right now? Why do you always have to make things awkward?" The words had piled up over time, wearing me down until I barely recognized myself anymore. Tonight was just the final proof that Jessica didn't respect me and probably never had. The front door opened around midnight. Her footsteps were careful as she came inside, lighter than usual. I knew her well enough to recognize the shift. She expected me to be in bed feeling sorry for myself, not sitting here waiting. When she walked into the kitchen and saw me at the table, something flickered across her face before she masked it. Unease. She forced a smirk. "Oh, come on, you're not still upset about that, are you?" I didn't respond. She sighed dramatically and tossed her purse on the counter. "Seriously, it was a joke. Everyone was laughing. You always take things so personally." I still didn't say anything. That's when she actually looked at me, really looked. Her smirk faded. "What?" I held up the notepad. She squinted at it, confused. "What the hell is that?" "A list," I said, closing it. "A list of what?" "Everything you've ever done to me." Silence filled the kitchen. For the first time in forever, Jessica had no quick comeback, no sarcastic remark ready. She let out a forced laugh. "Oh, please," she crossed her arms. "Don't be dramatic." I didn't look away. Her amusement slowly died. "You're serious?" I nodded. Something crossed her face, not guilt, because Jessica never felt guilty, but something closer to annoyance or nervousness. She didn't like the idea of me keeping track, of me remembering. Because for years, she'd relied on me forgetting and letting it go. She'd counted on me being the bigger person, on me swallowing my anger and moving on. That was how our marriage worked. She'd hurt me, I'd absorb it. Life would continue. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she said, voice sharper now, "but I'm not in the mood for your pity party." I leaned forward, resting my forearms on the table. "You humiliated me tonight." She rolled her eyes hard. "Oh my God, it was a joke. You called me an idiot in front of everyone. You acted like one." I took a slow breath, fighting to keep my voice level. "You threw wine in my face." She scoffed, actually scoffed, like it was nothing. "You deserved it." There it was. No regret, no apology, no acknowledgement that maybe she'd crossed a line, just justification. Jessica had never seen me as an equal. I was nothing more than a prop in her life, something she could dress up or ridicule depending on her mood. A punching bag for her ego. Someone she could tear down to build herself up. I pushed my chair back and stood. "This was the last time." Her eyebrows furrowed. "What?" "The last time you'll ever get to humiliate me." She laughed, but there was unease behind it. "Oh, please, what are you gonna do? Run away and cry somewhere?" I smiled, but not the way she was used to. This wasn't my usual forced smile that kept the peace. "No, I'm going to make sure you never do this to me again." I grabbed my notepad and laptop and left the kitchen. Jessica stood frozen for a moment before calling after me. "So now you're storming off like some sufferer, grow up." I didn't stop. She hated not being in control. Jessica thrived on having the upper hand, knowing exactly what buttons to press. But tonight she'd lost that control, and I could feel the shift in the air between us. I went upstairs, entered the bedroom, and locked the door behind me. Jessica banged on it almost immediately. "Are you serious? You're locking me out?" I didn't respond. "Fine, be childish," she said. "Sleep in there alone." I heard her grab stuff from the hall closet, muttering under her breath about how ridiculous I was being. She'd sleep in the guest room, fuming. I climbed into bed, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't angry anymore, wasn't even sad. I was just done, completely, utterly done. The house was tense the next morning, thick with everything unsaid. Jessica hadn't come back to the bedroom. She'd spent the night in the guest room, no doubt stewing about being locked out, probably planning what she'd say to make me feel guilty. I'd barely slept, but I wasn't exhausted. I was running on something stronger. Clarity. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and notepad. I read through the list again, not because I needed to remember, but to be sure. Every single line confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't fixable. This marriage had been dead for a long time. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. I heard Jessica's footsteps, always purposeful, heels clicking like she was making a statement with every step. This morning she was barefoot but still carried herself with that same air of superiority, chin up, shoulders back. She stopped in the doorway, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "So, are you done sulking?" I didn't look up, just sipped my coffee. "Morning, Jessica." She scoffed, stepping into the kitchen. "Oh, we're being civil now? What happened to all that dramatic brooding last night?" I finally glanced up at her. "I wasn't brooding." She smirked, but there was tension in her face, tight lines around her mouth. "Oh, right, you were making a list. God, I hope you realize how ridiculous that is." I didn't respond, just watched her. That seemed to irritate her more. Jessica didn't like silence unless she was creating it. She thrived on reactions, on controlling the conversation, on being the center of attention. She opened the fridge, pulled out orange juice, and poured herself a glass. "So, what's the plan here?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "Are you expecting me to grovel? Beg for forgiveness?" I closed my laptop slowly. "No." She took a sip, raising an eyebrow. "Then what do you want?" I pulled out my phone and unlocked it. I could see her watching me, curious but still dismissive, like she was waiting for me to say something she could mock. Instead, I just pressed play. Her voice filled the room, sharp and clear and unmistakable. "Why are you always acting like such an idiot?" Laughter followed. Glasses clinked. The whole humiliating moment perfectly captured on video. Someone at the table had recorded the entire thing. Jessica froze. The video played on, the camera angle shifting slightly as whoever was recording tried to capture the full scene. You could see the wine hitting my face, see me sit there absorbing it, see her laughing. When it ended, I set my phone down calmly. She let out a short laugh, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Who the hell recorded that?" "One of your friends." Her jaw tightened. "Which one?" I leaned back in my chair. "Does it matter?" She crossed her arms again, but this time it wasn't out of defiance. It was defensive, protective. "So what? You're keeping a video like some bitter ex-girlfriend? Are you planning to do something with it?" I didn't answer. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "Jesus, you're unbelievable. You act like I committed some kind of crime. It was a joke." I tilted my head. "Did it look like a joke to you?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on. People laugh at each other all the time. Don't be so sensitive." "People laugh with each other, Jessica, not at." She scoffed, but something flickered in her expression, something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Not because she thought I would hurt her physically. No, Jessica wasn't afraid of me like that. She was afraid because, for the first time, she wasn't in control of the situation. She couldn't spin this, couldn't manipulate the narrative. "Delete it," she said suddenly, voice firm. I smirked. "Why? It was just a joke, right?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. I let the silence stretch between us, waiting, watching her squirm. She wasn't used to this, to me having leverage, to me holding the cards. "Seriously," she said, voice lower now, more urgent. "Delete it." I took another sip of coffee, taking my time. "No." Her nostrils flared. "You're acting like a chit." I shrugged. "Maybe, but you're acting like someone who's suddenly very worried about a harmless joke." Her jaw tightened. She looked away, rubbing her fingers against the rim of her glass. "I swear to God, if you try to embarrass me with that video, I set my coffee down with a quiet clink. "You'll what?" She snapped her mouth shut. Just like that, the power shifted. For years, Jessica had held all the control. She dictated how our marriage functioned, how people perceived us, how I saw myself. She'd crafted a narrative where she was the strong, charismatic wife with the weak, pathetic husband who was lucky to have her. But now she was the one floundering. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "You've spent years making me feel small, Jessica. You've torn me down in front of your friends, your colleagues, hell, even strangers. And every time I let it go, every time I told myself it wasn't worth the fight, that I loved you too much to make it a big deal." Her eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything. She just stood there, frozen. "But last night," I continued, "I realized something. You don't love me, Jessica. You love control. You love having someone to belittle, someone to make yourself feel superior to. That's not a marriage. That's not love. That's not—" she started. I held up a hand. Don't insult me by pretending otherwise." She swallowed hard, her throat working. I sat back again, watching her carefully. "I'm not going to post the video if that's what you're worried about. I'm not petty, but I am done pretending." She hesitated. "What does that mean?" I exhaled slowly. "It means things are going to change." Jessica wasn't used to this. To me, standing my ground and refusing to play along. She tried to mask her unease with indifference, but I saw right through it. "Fine," she muttered, pushing off the counter. "You want to play this game? Be my guest." She turned and left the kitchen, her footsteps heavy on the floor. I didn't stop her because, for the first time in our marriage, Jessica was the one walking away uncertain. She stormed upstairs, footsteps heavy with frustration. She expected me to follow, to chase her down and try to talk things through. That's how it had always been. She'd cross a line, I'd call her out, she'd deflect, I'd try to smooth things over, repeat. But not this time. I stayed put, picked up my coffee, and let the silence settle around me like a comfortable blanket. Jessica thought she was still in control, but she had no idea how much I'd already taken back. While she'd been out humiliating me last night, I'd been busy. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The numbers were exactly where I'd left them. Half our shared savings, now securely in my own account. Legally mine. Untouchable by her. Jessica had always managed the finances, not because I couldn't, but because she liked to. She liked knowing where the money went, how much was spent, and more importantly, how much power she had over it. She controlled the cards, the accounts, the bills. She made sure I always had just enough to be comfortable, but never enough to be independent. That was intentional. She wanted me dependent on her. That changed last night. I'd transferred my half, removed her access to my credit card, and frozen our joint account. If she wanted money now, she'd have to use her own savings. I locked my phone and set it down. Jessica would find out soon enough. I'd already drafted emails to my lawyer, just preliminary inquiries, nothing official yet. But it was only a matter of time before this marriage was over. I wasn't going to be her doormat anymore, wasn't going to be the man she laughed at, wasn't going to need her approval to feel worth something. A sharp thud echoed from upstairs. Jessica had slammed something, maybe a dresser drawer, maybe the door itself. She was angry. Good, let her be angry. She'd built this entire marriage on the idea that I would always be there, that no matter how cruel she was, I'd stay, that I'd tolerate the remarks, the dismissive glances, the way she spoke to me like I was an inconvenience, rather than her husband. But the moment she realized she was losing control, the panic would set in. Minutes later, she came stomping back down, face carefully composed, but eyes burning with frustration. She was holding her phone, gripping it tightly like it might escape. I didn't look up right away, let her stand there shifting from foot to foot, waiting for me to acknowledge her. Finally, I glanced up. Something wrong? She let out a hollow laugh. You think you're clever, don't you? I arched an eyebrow. I don't know what you mean. She lifted her phone slightly. My car got declined. I took another sip of coffee. That's unfortunate. Her jaw clenched. Cut the crap. What did you do? I set my mug down and leaned back. I secured my finances. Her nostrils flared. Our finances. I tilted my head. No, Jessica. My finances. I took my share. The rest is still there for you. She scoffed, running a hand through her hair. You think you can just do that? Just take half our money like you're entitled to it? I let my fingers drum against the table. You mean like how you've been using our money for vacations with your friends, buying things you never told me about, throwing expensive dinner parties where I'm the punchline? I paused. Yeah, I'm entitled to my half. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, you're still on that? It was one night. I shook my head wearily. No, Jessica, it wasn't. It was years of the same treatment, the same disregard, the same humiliation. Last night was just the most public. She stared at me, lips pressed into a thin line. So what, you're punishing me? Making me suffer because your ego got bruised? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No, I'm just done letting you dictate my life. She crossed her arms tighter. You're being dramatic. I shrugged. Maybe I'm finally standing up for myself. Her eyes flickered with hesitation and uncertainty. She didn't like this. Didn't like that I wasn't reacting the way I used to. Normally, she'd be able to gaslight me, manipulate me into thinking I was overreacting, convince me I was the problem. She was an expert at that. But not this time. She exhaled sharply. So what now? I studied her carefully. Now I start planning my future without you in it. She let out a short, bitter laugh. Oh, please, you wouldn't last a week without me. I smirked. That's what you'd like to believe. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced down at it and her expression shifted, the color draining slightly from her face. More messages, more people talking. It wasn't just about the money anymore. People were seeing her differently now. I knew at least one of her friends had shared that video beyond our dinner table, and once things spread online, they didn't stop. They multiplied, reached people you never expected. Jessica had always been the golden one, the woman everyone admired, the one who could do no wrong. But now she was being seen through a different lens, and she hated it. I could tell by how her shoulders tensed, by how her grip on the phone tightened, that she'd seen something that rattled her. She glanced back at me, something calculating in her gaze. "You're really doing this?" I nodded. "I am." She inhaled through her nose, jaw tightening. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the desperate attempt to figure out her next move. But she'd already lost. She just didn't know it yet. She turned and walked away without another word. I let her go. She could plot all she wanted, try to twist things, manipulate the situation, find a way to spin it back. But it wouldn't work, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't playing by her rules anymore. The next morning, Jessica acted like nothing had happened. I expected this. It was part of her strategy. Pretend the problem didn't exist until she could figure out how to twist it in her favor. She sat at the breakfast bar, sipping coffee, scrolling through her phone, looking as composed as ever. But I wasn't fooled. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the tightness in her grip, the way she deliberately avoided looking at me. I poured my own coffee and sat across from her. I could feel the weight of her silence, the brewing storm behind her calm facade. She wanted me to speak first, to break the tension so she could control the conversation. I didn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I sipped my coffee, opened my laptop, and went through my emails. She lasted about 5 minutes before she snapped. "What the hell did you do?" I didn't look up. "You'll have to be more specific." Her jaw clenched. "Don't play dumb with me. My bank account is frozen, my card is still declining, and—" She waved her phone. "This video is everywhere." I slowly closed my laptop and met her gaze. "Oh." Her eyes narrowed dangerously. "You knew this would happen." I leaned back. "No, Jessica, you did this. I didn't tell you to humiliate me in public. I didn't throw wine in your face. I didn't record the video. One of your friends did. And apparently the world doesn't find it as funny as you thought they would." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You should have deleted it." I arched an eyebrow. "Why? It was just a joke, right?" Her fingers curled around her phone so tight her knuckles went white. "God, you're pathetic. You're actually acting like a sufferer." I smirked. "Because I was." She stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. "Do you have any idea what you've done? My clients are seeing this. My boss saw it. I got an email this morning about a meeting they want to have. They think this makes me look unprofessional." I tilted my head. Imagine that. Her glare was ice cold. "You're enjoying this." I took another sip, voice calm. "I'm enjoying watching you deal with the consequences of your own actions." She let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "And what? You think you're winning? What's your plan? Destroy my reputation? Take half the money and run? Do you really think you're coming out on top?" I sighed, shaking my head. "Jessica, this isn't about winning. It's about finally standing up for myself." She scoffed. "Oh, please, you think you're some martyr? You're still the same pathetic man you've always been. You think a few financial moves and a viral video make you stronger?" I stood up slowly, pushing my chair back. "No, Jessica. What makes me stronger is realizing I don't need you." She froze. For years, she'd held on to this belief that I was dependent on her, that I needed her validation, approval, presence. She thought I'd always be there no matter how badly she treated me. But she was wrong. I grabbed my laptop, phone, and coffee. I have work to do." She blinked like she hadn't expected me to just walk away. But I did. I went to my office, closed the door, and left her standing there alone with her panic. I sat at my desk, exhaling slowly. My hands weren't shaking, my breathing was steady. For the first time in years, I felt completely in control of my own life. I wasn't sure how long I'd been working when I heard Jessica on the phone, voice sharp with barely contained frustration. "I don't care how it happened, just fix it." A pause. "No, I don't know who sent it to them, but I need it taken down." She was scrambling, trying to contain the damage. I smirked to myself. She wasn't used to this, wasn't used to people seeing the real her behind the polished facade. Eventually, she came knocking on my office door. I didn't look up. "Busy." She opened the door anyway. "We need to talk." I sighed, closing my laptop. "About what?" She hesitated, then crossed her arms. "You need to help me fix this." I blinked, then actually laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It was genuine amusement at the absurdity of her request. She scowled. "I'm serious." I shook my head. "You don't get it, do you? I don't need to help you. I'm not your problem solver, Jessica. I'm not your PR team. You did this to yourself. Her nostrils flared. Do you have any idea what this could cost me? I stood up, meeting her glare head on. Do you have any idea what you've cost me? My self-respect, my dignity, my sanity. Years of my life feeling like I wasn't good enough. She clenched her jaw. This is ridiculous. I shrugged. Maybe, but it's not my problem anymore. She stared at me, something flickering behind her eyes. For a second, just a second, I thought I saw fear. Not fear of me, but fear of losing. Because for the first time, she realized she wasn't in control. I picked up my phone, checked the time. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. Do you need anything else? Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but didn't. Instead, she turned and walked out. I exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of my desk. It was happening. The power she'd wielded over me for years was slipping through her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. And the best part, I didn't even have to do anything. She was undoing herself. Jessica spent most of the day on her phone trying to put out fires. The video had spread further than she anticipated, and no amount of damage control could fully erase the stain on her perfect reputation. I sat in the living room watching as she paced back and forth, phone pressed to her ear. What do you mean it's still up? I thought you said you could get it taken down. A pause. Her fingers curled. I know how the internet works, but there has to be something we can do. She stopped mid-sentence, back straightening, head turning slightly. Her eyes met mine. I didn't say anything, just watched her. The silence stretched between us, heavy and loaded. She ended the call abruptly and tossed her phone onto the couch. Are you enjoying this? I leaned back against the cushions. Enjoying what? She scoffed, watching me deal with all this. I took a sip of my drink. I don't have to watch you deal with anything, Jessica. You brought this on yourself. Her hands balled into fists. You could have deleted the video. I arched an eyebrow. And you could have not thrown wine in my face and humiliated me in front of your friends. Actions have consequences. She shook her head, pacing again. It's not just about you. This is affecting my career. My boss is putting me on leave while they assess my behavior. My clients are distancing themselves. She stopped and looked at me, lips curling in frustration. But I bet you love that, don't you? I set my drink down. No, Jessica, I don't love watching your life fall apart. But I do think it's poetic justice that you're finally experiencing what it's like to be dismissed, judged, and disrespected. Her nostrils flared. This is so typical of you, playing the sufferer, pretending like you were some helpless puppy in our marriage. I took care of everything. I built this life. And you controlled everything, I interrupted, voice even. You dictated every decision, every expense, every move we made. You never saw me as an equal, Jessica. You saw me as an accessory. She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped because she knew I was right. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she folded her arms and exhaled sharply. So what, now you just punish me? I shook my head. I'm not punishing you, Jessica. I'm just done letting you punish me. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but she hesitated. That hesitation was new. Jessica never hesitated. She always had an answer, always had a counterattack ready. But now she was losing, and she knew it. I checked the time. I have a meeting soon. She didn't look up. Of course you do, she muttered. I stood up, walking past her, pausing only when I reached the door. By the way, you might want to check your email. That made her head snap up. I left before she could say anything. I sat in my office, letting everything sink in. The email I'd mentioned, the one she was about to open, it was from my lawyer. It wasn't official yet, but the process had started. I wasn't just leaving Jessica emotionally, I was leaving her legally. I could almost picture the way her face would drop when she saw it. The realization, the full weight of what she'd done finally hitting her. I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. She'd spent years treating me like I was disposable, like I needed her more than she needed me. She was about to find out how wrong she was. Jessica's reaction came exactly as expected. Barely 15 minutes after I left her, I heard the sharp sound of her phone being thrown against something hard. Then came the stomping, heavy, deliberate, filled with barely contained rage. She didn't knock, just pushed my office door open, standing there, with arms crossed, face an unreadable mask. I didn't look up right away, kept my focus on my laptop like I didn't hear the door, didn't feel the storm brewing. Finally, she spoke. You're divorcing me. Her voice wasn't loud, wasn't a scream, but there was something underneath it, something sharp and dangerous. I typed another word, hit save, closed my laptop, then looked up. Yes. Her hands curled into fists. Just like that. I leaned back, meeting her gaze steadily. No, Jessica, not just like that. This has been a long time coming. She let out a bitter laugh. Oh, come on, this is over a stupid dinner party? Over spilled wine? You're really throwing away our marriage over that? I shook my head slowly. No, Jessica. I'm throwing away our marriage because I don't want it anymore. That hit her harder than anything else I could have said. Her lips parted, body going rigid. She'd been prepared to argue, to manipulate, to twist the situation into something small and petty. But she wasn't prepared for that simple truth. She took a slow step forward, arms loosening slightly. You're serious? I nodded. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. She blinked, trying to process it. Then the mask was back on. She scoffed, crossing her arms again. Fine. You want a divorce? Go ahead. But don't think you're going to walk away with anything. I smirked. Jessica, I already did. Her jaw clenched. Excuse me? I picked up my phone, scrolled through my banking app, turned the screen toward her. She went pale as she read the numbers. You son of a... Careful, I said calmly. Remember, everything you say can be used against you in court. Her nostrils flared, but she didn't take the bait. Instead, she turned, pacing the room. You think you're smart, she muttered. You think you've won? I sighed, rubbing my temple. Jessica, this isn't a game. She let out a dry laugh. Oh, it is, and you just changed the rules. I watched her carefully. Jessica was calculating now, shifting her strategy. She wasn't going to throw things or scream. That was too easy, too emotional. Instead, she was going to try and control the narrative. I'll contest it, she said, voice smoother now. You think this will be simple? That I'll just sign the papers and disappear? Oh no, we built this life together, and I'm going to make sure you pay for this decision. I shrugged. You can contest all you want. It won't change anything. She narrowed her eyes. You really think you have the upper hand? I smiled. Jessica, for the first time in this marriage, I do. She stared at me, studying me, searching for something she could use. Then she did something I hadn't expected. She softened, arms uncrossed, lips parted slightly, and she stepped closer. Do you really want to do this? She asked, voice quieter, almost vulnerable. I tilted my head. Yes. She exhaled, rubbing a hand over her face. Look, maybe we got carried away. Maybe things got bad, but we've been together a long time. We have history. I leaned back. History isn't a reason to stay in something that makes you miserable. She hesitated. You're really miserable? I nodded. You've made sure of it. She looked away. For a split second, I thought I saw something close to regret, but with Jessica, I never knew if it was real or just another performance. Finally, she sighed. What if we tried? I raised an eyebrow. Tried? She shrugged, forcing a small smile. To fix this. I mean, come on. We've been through worse, haven't we? I let the silence stretch before speaking. What's the real reason, Jessica? Her brow furrowed. What? I stood up slowly, walking toward her. Why do you suddenly want to fix things? Is it because you miss me? Because you want our marriage to work? She said nothing. I took another step forward. Or is it because you're afraid of what happens when you don't have me around anymore? Her lips pressed into a thin line. There it was. The truth she couldn't hide. I exhaled, stepping back. That's what I thought, she scoffed. Oh, don't flatter yourself. I smirked. I don't need to. The truth is already doing that for me. She turned, gripping the doorframe. You'll regret this. I picked up my phone again. I doubt it. She stormed out and I let her go because I knew deep down she'd already lost. This was over. That night, Jessica didn't sleep in our bedroom, didn't even try. I heard her moving around in the guest room, shuffling through drawers, opening and closing cabinets, making just enough noise to remind me of her presence. It was her way of making a statement, wanting me to know she was still there, that she wasn't going anywhere, quietly, but I didn't care. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of the city. A part of me expected to feel something, regret, hesitation, maybe nostalgia for the good times we'd had years ago. But there was nothing. No sadness, no longing, just relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could finally breathe. Morning came quickly. The scent of coffee drifted through the air, sharp and deliberate, like Jessica was making it just for herself. I found her in the kitchen, sitting at the counter, phone in one hand, steaming mug in the other. She looked up when I walked in, expression unreadable. Silence stretched between us. Then she set her mug down and exhaled. So that's it? I poured myself coffee, taking my time. What's it? She let out a humorless laugh. You're really just walking away from all of this? I leaned against the counter, meeting her gaze. I walked away a long time ago, Jessica. You just didn't notice. Her lips pressed thin. That's ridiculous. Is it? I tilted my head. Because I think it's the most honest thing I've said in years. She shook her head, taking a slow sip. You don't get it. You don't just leave. It doesn't work like that. I sighed, setting my mug down. Jessica, we both know this marriage hasn't been a marriage for a long time. You don't respect me. You don't even like me. She flinched, just barely, but enough for me to see it. I continued. You liked having me around because it was convenient, because I made things easier for you. But let's be honest, if I'd walked away years ago, you wouldn't have fought for me. You would have been relieved. She looked away, fingers tightening around her mug. I waited, giving her a chance to deny it, but she didn't. She exhaled, rubbing her forehead. You're really going through with this? I nodded. I already started the process. Her head snapped up. You what? I sent the email to my lawyer yesterday, I said simply. It's already in motion. Her eyes darkened. You didn't even talk to me first. I arched an eyebrow. Would it have changed anything? She scoffed. That's not the point. It kind of is. She stared at me. Something unreadable, flickering in her gaze, then shook her head, laughing under her breath. Unbelievable. I leaned forward slightly. Tell me something, Jessica. She rolled her eyes. What? If I hadn't said anything, if I'd just kept going the way things were, would you have ever considered fixing our marriage? She hesitated, then looked away. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I exhaled, pushing off the counter. I'll start moving my things today. It's only a matter of time before one of us leaves the house. Might as well make things easier. She let out a short laugh. Wow, you've really got it all planned out, don't you? I shrugged. I had a lot of time to think about it. Her fingers drummed against the counter. You're not the man I married. I smirked. You're right, I'm not. That guy put up with your crap. I'm done being him. Her expression hardened, but I saw something else behind it. Something closer to fear. Not fear of me, not fear of being alone, but fear of losing control. For years, she dictated the terms of our relationship, been the one pulling the strings, making the decisions, deciding how things would play out. But now she was scrambling. And for the first time, she had no idea what to do next. She stood up abruptly, pushing her chair back. Fine, do whatever you want. I nodded, finishing my coffee. I will. She turned and walked out of the kitchen. I didn't follow her, didn't need to, because no matter what she did, no matter how she tried to twist things, the truth remained the same. I spent the rest of the morning packing my things into the guest room. It didn't take long because I realized I had barely anything that was truly mine in this house. A few clothes, some books, my laptop and work stuff. Everything else was hers or ours, but mostly hers. She'd decorated, she'd chosen the furniture, she'd made every decision about how this place looked and felt. I just existed in it. By afternoon, I was done. My suitcases sat in the corner of the guest room, my life reduced to a few bags. It should have felt sad, but it didn't. It felt liberating, like I was finally shedding a weight I'd been carrying for years. Jessica avoided me for the rest of the day. I heard her in other rooms on phone calls, probably talking to her friends or her own lawyer. I didn't care. I had work to do, plans to make, a future to build without her in it. That evening, I sat in the guest room with my laptop, looking at apartments. I'd need my own place soon. Somewhere small, somewhere quiet, somewhere that was mine. The idea excited me in a way nothing had in years. I heard Jessica's footsteps stop outside the door. She didn't knock, didn't come in, just stood there. After a moment, she walked away. Part of me wondered what she was thinking, if she was finally starting to understand what she'd lost. But mostly, I just didn't care anymore. The next few days passed in a strange limbo. Jessica and I barely spoke, moving around each other like ghosts in our own home. She was still trying to manage the fallout from the video, still fielding calls from her boss and clients. I heard snippets of conversations, her voice tight with stress, making excuses, trying to explain. Meanwhile, I was making my own plans. I found an apartment, signed a lease, arranged for movers. I met with my lawyer, went over the divorce paperwork, made sure everything was in order. Every step felt right, like I was finally taking control of my own life. One evening, Jessica knocked on the guest room door. I looked up from my laptop. Yeah? She opened the door slowly. Can we talk? I closed my laptop. What about? She stepped inside, looking smaller somehow, less sure of herself. I've been thinking. I waited. Maybe we were both wrong, she said. Maybe we both made mistakes. I shook my head. No, Jessica, you made mistakes. I just accepted them for too long. Her jaw tightened. So that's it? You're not even willing to try? I stood up. Try what? To go back to how things were? Where you treat me like I'm nothing and I'm supposed to just take it? No thanks. I could change, she said, but even she didn't sound convinced. I smiled sadly. Maybe you could, but I don't want to wait around to find out. I'm done, Jessica. I'm finally done. She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I guess this is really happening then. Yeah, I said, it really is. She turned and left without another word. I sat back down, opened my laptop, and continued planning my new life. This marriage was over, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Completely, utterly free. I was choosing myself, and that decision felt right in a way nothing had in a very long time.